Good morning, everybody. It's great to see so many seats filled, especially with some of the issues that we've had with travel today. So well done us. Great panel today. I'm not going to do ask people to do introductions. They'll bring their experiences, to life as they go through. But yeah, this is about innovation and entrepreneurship, and it's bringing to life those ideas that have a manifest impact on our lives. And we've got some great experience that we'll bring to bear here. I think for me, just with a couple of opening points, I think there's a real feel of courage and resilience when you talk about innovation and entrepreneurship. That ability to see the problem, but then to launch, land, and importantly lodge with an organisation or into society a solution sometimes that people didn't even realise was answering problems that they had. And so I think we'll probably talk about some of the problem sets, but also some of the personal characteristics that are required in order to deliver those effective outcomes. I think the other thing that is really important is the culture of organisations. Are organisations culturally attuned to identifying risks properly, but then having the culture whereby they're supporting innovation? They're accepting that things may not necessarily work, that there will be failures, but they're giving people who've got great ideas and they've got ambition and passion to bring those into fruition. And sometimes our organisations don't necessarily have that right sort of incubator culture that allows us to get after those knotty issues. I think the final point before I get into the meat of the panel itself is around what is entrepreneurship versus innovation. And I think there is a difference. A lot of us will innovate. A lot of us will actually imitate thinking it's innovation. But actually, entrepreneurship is about that end-to-end life cycle, and it is building all of those support structures so that it's not just the smart idea. That's one thing, but then operationalizing it, industrializing and scaling it. And those things require a different mindset, different skill set. And I think we all identify a good idea. I've had plenty, haven't been able to actually get them over the start line. So I think we'll be able to have a good discussion about some of those thoughts. But first and foremost, as I said, we're not doing introductions, but I'll sort of dive into the sort of the questions with the panel. And Gaelic, what was the security problem or the business problem that frustrated you, that sort of motivated you? And why was it you? Why were you the person?
Tough question, but I think it all starts for every entrepreneur with personal stories. I come from a Latino background. I grew up with scissors next to my bed with my mom whenever I was sleeping with her in Uruguay. Or my grandfather thought it was a good idea to leave me alone on the street in Buenos Aires for 10 minutes to learn a lesson when I was just 7 years old. And then little by little, I came to London and I heard so many stories from my friends being either stabbed in the leg to sell the bicycle or beaten up and couldn't just sleep to wake up in hospital with their bank accounts completely empty. So yeah, when my co-founder came to me and told me, I got attacked by 4 guys last night in front of a safe neighborhood after a late night dinner, and she was like, why are we in 2020, back in the days, 2023, and we're still feeling unsafe, looking over our shoulders and trying to figure out what's the best route to go home without anything happening to you. So we sat down and I fell in love with the problem of trying to solve it. It's we should all be able to walk alone at night in peace, especially in London in 2026. So I think that's how it should start for every entrepreneur, where you need to fall in love with the problem and then obviously find the solution that corresponds to it and going from first principle and working your way up.
When you said you've got to fall in love with the problem, that's actually, that really chimes, and I'll sort of write that down. I bet Rick will reflect that later on. And I think, for me, we see a problem and then we start to navigate our way to a solution. And I think it's that passion that really, to me is one of the most important things to have. And just staying with with your situation, how do you sort of inculcate in others the passion that you've got for your projects?
How do you transfer
how do you get that passion across to others?
Well, you wake up in the morning and you just know that's the only thing you want to be working on. I mean, I started this 2-3 years ago without getting any salaries, with like living off like debt, and I was just naive that this is the problem I want to solve, and just waking up and the only thing you live for is like trying to solve this issue. And in my head is like, all of this work will pay off if one day someone is wearing our badge. For those that doesn't know what it is, wearable badge that keeps people safe at night, and be able to save one life or allow, I don't know, you probably heard of Sarah Everard, probably that just not happening again. That's my only passion.
I mean, absolutely superb. And I think for most of us, we understand that intersection between safety and security. You know, we do a lot on that in terms of our Home Safe and Well campaigns, and it's absolutely critical. I think moving on from there, and Bella, I'll sort of ask you, in terms of your journey, what have been the most significant blockers that you've faced, and have they been personal? Have they been organisational? And how have you sought to overcome them?
Yeah, so the organisation that I'm working for and working with is all about trying to educate people about influence security. And one of the things that we've come across is, first of all, people don't understand what that is. When you say influence security, they mean, what is influence security? And for us, it means being secure against the influences in your daily lives. So especially those coming from social media platforms, AI, algorithms, and that kind of thing. And a lot of people, especially right now, are saying, oh yeah, that's a really topical thing. People aren't really aware, they don't understand the echo chambers in which that they are being driven into in social media and that kind of thing. But as much as they might understand the problem, they don't have any knowledge, or they don't know what to do about it. And they say, well, I'm on this algorithm on social media, I keep seeing these videos, like how can I do anything about that? And so we're really trying to help people educate themselves on how do you spot that, first of all, this is happening to you, that you are being influenced in ways that you don't understand. And I don't mean just by hostile actors, I also mean just by people in your daily life, by social media influencers, by marketing. And the way you really need to be thinking critically as you are mindlessly scrolling, which is hard to do, I know, but you need to be going, why am I being shown this? And what am I not being shown? And when I get the next video that's almost identical to the first one, is this changing the way in which I'm thinking about something? Or is this taking me down a road where I'm becoming more insular in this specific point of view? And we've seen it recently with the rise of spaces such as the manosphere. And so really trying to get people to engage and see, not only is this a problem, but how do we engage with it? How do we do something about it?
And I think that's, how do you engage people, I think is a really interesting, subject. You could have a whole day on that. Because it's not just the message, it's how you engage. And if what are your experiences on how you actually engage a populace that doesn't necessarily want to listen to what you've got to say?
It's something that we are honestly still trying to work with, because so many people just don't, I think one of the biggest problems is so many people don't believe it's them. They're like, oh yeah, I can see this is happening, but it's not happening to me. And the truth of the matter is it's happening to everybody. Like everybody with a phone, whether you're on social media or not, if you're connecting with AI, even if you just are talking to the people around you who have social media and all these different things, you are being influenced, whether you realize it or not. And people just are forgetting to criticize and engage and critically think about these different things. And they're just taking what they get for fact instead of saying, hold on a second, maybe I need to analyze this a bit more. Maybe I need to see the other side, and realize that they are actually insecure in the fact that this is influencing them in a way that they don't understand and they don't know. And it is an insecurity that every person has.
Yeah. And I think that's a really in terms of a blocker, that's a big one, for me. And how do you pivot that understanding, that awareness? Tell people the unpalatable truth. So and very interesting, and it's probably a topic that's pretty close to all of our hearts back at home. Actually, and I think I've seen some nodding heads. Sorry, not shaking heads. So we're obviously landing an important message there. I think moving on, and Hugo, in that adversary space, adversaries don't have to abide by the rule of law Ethics and morals, live in a different framework with the adversary. So how do we try and maintain our edge and innovate to keep ahead of the adversary in a really contested environment?
Yeah, I mean, this will be top of mind to everyone here. I'll try and move away from you, maybe. This will be top of mind for everyone here. And let's talk about that asymmetry for a second there. It's obviously real, but it's often misdiagnosed. It's not because the bad actors are more talented or they have better resources. It's very simply because they don't have the overheads that all of us in this room have. I know it sounds incredibly obvious, but when you try and roll out innovation programs within, especially a large organization, the natural reaction that I've seen in my previous role, so I used to work at a large investigations company called Kroll. I was a senior director, part of technology and innovation. The typical approach tends to be, let's have the whole organization move at threat speed, which we all know is absolutely impossible. And you end up in a situation where no one can do everything. Everyone is bogged down by process, by governance, and the only realistic way out of that is fundamentally to have mini startups inside of large organizations. Now, all of us here are part of kind of the founder community. We've all decided to go off and do our own thing, but that's not for everyone. I know everyone now wants to be a founder. It's not for everyone. You can do that inside of large organizations, and there will be many people who work within your organizations who want to do that with the safety of a job. Now, what are they lacking is probably the big question that we want to try and answer. And typically it comes down to independence, actual decision-making authority, and real budgets. I mean, we all know how hard it is to raise money. We've been fortunate to raise $20 million, and I say dollars because we've had to go to the US to get money because effectively no one would back us in the UK. That's always a big challenge. These teams don't need to be big. Typically, a senior to take the flak and effectively sign off on budgets, and a couple of analysts can start identifying threats. Now, thinking back, taking a little bit of a step back to what kind of threats that we're seeing, I think what new technologies have really brought as a challenge for us is bringing new technologies to old attack vectors. As you know, I know this is your bread and butter, but the trend that I'm most worried about is you're a crime group. You don't need to be a generalist anymore. You can specialize in one very small thing and you can hire out the rest. Crime as a service is real, it's existing, it's the same networks that are being used for ransomware attacks, that are used for money laundering, drug traffics. All of these networks are interlinked, and the only way that you can have an approach to dealing with that is by having a coordinated approach within a company that starts with a small innovation hub that effectively isn't there to bypass governance, because governance is important. It's just there to feed better information at the governance stage earlier. And that's when you start getting that flywheel of innovation. It starts with small teams growing, and effectively it becomes a cultural point. Maybe one point that I'll end with is the generational point. I guess that's also why we're here. We've grown up with these new technologies. I'm 32, I grew up with the internet, but I had to learn new technologies as they came along. I'm a virtual asset specialist. I've been working in crypto for 10 years. So it effectively came out when I was already working. The only way that happens is, once again, by encouraging the mindset that, great, there's something new, that's your job. Go figure it out and give me the brief. Help me understand, because I'm an old dog. I understand all of these old risks that exist, and I have a better understanding of the context than you, but how this particular bit of technology can be used to give rise to this threat, that's where we can work together and collaborate. So I'll probably end with that.
Just one to... Oh. Am I on? Oh, yeah, there we go. You've mentioned risk, and I often think that we probably discuss risk in the wrong way. It's quite traditional, and we actually don't take risks when we're looking to address risks. And I thought the CEO of NCSC's Rusi talk, where he was talking about we need to think about risk in a different way. And how do you overcome that inertia, that stasis with the seniors when they want to look at risk through quite a safe lens?
With great difficulty. Just speaking from personal experience in the organizations that I've worked with, certainly where it works best is being allowed to fail and being given the latitude to fail and learn from those failures. Too often we'll start programs, set very clear objectives at the start of a program, and if halfway through the program, we're actually not meeting those objectives. Just budgets get canned, people move, people don't feel incentivized, when actually that's the last thing you want to do. You should really be doubling down on understanding why those specific programs are failing, whether it's because the objectives were badly set in the first place, and encouraging those people who took that risk internally to not be penalized by it. Too many people lose promotion prospects because they don't meet the objectives set by a program at the start, and that's one of the big challenges that anyone in an innovation role in a large company has.
Is it working? Yeah. If I may, just on because you were talking about corporation and how it is good to have like small teams that innovate, and for me, the contradiction to risk is motivation. So how do we find motivation in big corporation in order to incentivize small teams to do what startups do? Because startups, as you said, have a amount of funding, but a lot of motivation into doing whatever they're doing. So maybe innovation has to be first into how do we innovate a corporation to have this kind of environment which allows employees to be motivated in the work. So maybe having like some kind of, I'm saying, talking some ideas out loud, but have like a crypto kind of system where the person who initiates the idea has their name put in some kind of a system, and that person will develop it as a motivation that this is their system. They know that the corporation sees it, that they started it, and then they know that this, whatever comes out of it, the fruit of it is out of that person. I don't know if that makes sense, but we need to innovate how the corporation sees innovation as a whole and how to motivate employees to actually act as startups.
Yeah, being able to own the success as well when it comes through it, and instead of a small team having built something and then suddenly senior people come along and they say, look at what we built, without actually incentivizing the people who did a lot of the original legwork. Yeah.
I think most of us are struggling with the AI challenge, and a lot of people think, innovation, AI, etc. And Francis, from your experience and in your current role, how is artificial intelligence technology changing the landscape, and how will emerging legislation and regulation also have an effect on innovation and exploitation?
So AI is absolutely changing the landscape of innovation, especially for startups, at such an incredibly accelerated rate. But I think it also is really dependent on what industry you're in. So my startup is a defense tech AI startup called BattleBottle, which is counter-drone orchestration AI that optimizes drone survivability and the financial survivability of assets on the battlefield. And what was funny was that I used to be a teacher, and I ended up making an edtech startup, and that resulted in King's College London giving me the Alumni of the Year award last summer for my work on AI in education. But that ended up getting me connected towards a few contacts in the MOD. And then I just presented a really early prototype of our drone orchestration AI to a few contacts in the MOD literally back in February. And they have just been incredibly, incredibly supportive. Like, being in the edtech industry, I was in that industry for about 3 years, and you're constantly slowed down all the time. AI should allow people to innovate and grow fast, and some industries just do not allow that. But the defense industry, God, it just really allows you to innovate really, really fast and just it's just really cool. And it's just like, one thing I've definitely noticed is just that, like, I only started this back in February this year, but like, we've already got loads of support from the MOD, having some pilots starting abroad, being invited to exhibit our tech off in a few like military conferences and a few MOD bases, and even invited to exhibit our tech off in NATO next week as part of their counter-drone conference. And I'm just like, this industry literally just allows people like me to just innovate and scale fast. And that's something that I feel that the defense sector and security sector is really good at, just encouraging people, especially startups like us, who just, we build fast, we test fast, we break fast, we learn fast, and then we just build fast again. Like, this industry of defense and security just absolutely allows us to do that. And it's like, that's something I did again in the edtech sector. And I say partially part of the reason is maybe just defense is a hot topic right now, but also one thing I've identified in this industry is just that people in the defense industry are actually like really, really cool and like really, really helpful. Like, there's a bunch of people here in this room who's helped me a lot since I started, and legit, without their support, I would have like come this far since like February. Like, started from an idea back in February to like going to NATO HQ in like June, and it's just like people in this industry are just like really cool, and they're really good at helping you innovate at scale using AI, and it's beautiful.
And just that's brilliant, and your passion absolutely comes through there, which is super. But do we also have the right conversation going back to risk around some of the the evident risks? Are we able to innovate, but are we able to do so in a risk-informed and an appropriate manner?
So after King's College gave me the Alumni of the Year award last year for my work on AI, I got invited to loads of events about AI in the public sector in Whitehall and Parliament. And what I started identifying throughout many sectors of academia, policymakers, and other various institutions is that you have loads of people who are trying to, how to describe it, dictate the future of AI, especially in this country, but they have no idea what they're talking about and calling themselves experts. Like I remember one unnamed policymaker I was talking to, and they were trying to propose that we should have an individual government policy in place for every single AI model. Not every single LLM or each individual model, but each individual model inside an LLM. And I'm like, you guys don't understand how fast this industry moves. By the time you push something through government, the model you already made a policy for is completely outdated. And it just kind of feels like so many of the people that are trying to control AI policy in this country don't really understand anything about it. Their own experience is just they were able to use ChatGPT a couple of times. Said, that doesn't make someone an expert in AI. They need to actually understand the actual engines behind it, how to actually make their own custom models, and the exact way in which AI works. Like there's this whole fear-mongering that AI is some magical boogeyman that's going to take everyone's jobs. In reality, it's literally just a giant predictive text engine, really.
But it is true that it is taking jobs. I mean, going back to innovation, we have little amount of funds. I tell Claude should do a massive research on what is our product, where does it go, how is it being used, and it gives me a list of all the regulations or certification it needs to obtain. From there, I tell it to act as a lawyer and create all these documents that I need to apply with in order to get all this certification. And then I pass that on to my lawyer to finish off the work. So I saved up, maybe weeks of work, and I don't know how many thousands of pounds in legal expenses, and all of that with the help of AI. So.
Oh no, I completely agree with that. From a startup perspective, AI is an absolute godsend because when you're a startup founder, we're basically going without salaries for years, and we have such limited budget. AI actually allows us to do a bunch of tasks that would probably cost us tens of thousands of pounds minimum for a really low cost. And basically in this sort of stage, we do need to save as much money as possible with startups, don't we?
So we're pretty much at time. We are at time, 4 seconds.
Nice.
One word, just one word from each of you, either on your experience or advice to others. I'll start with you, Hugo. One word.
Friction.
Friction.
But let me explain quickly.
Ease off,
if you're a young person in this industry, don't find someone to mentor you, find someone to argue with you honestly. It's through friction that you can use new knowledge and apply judgment to effectively existing threats.
Back on brief, one word.
Frontier, I would say. I'll leave it at that.
No, but that's good. You'll be able to pick up on that later.
Passion. Just passion attracts people over, and passion, main thing.
And you need to be naive.
Brilliant. We are now 43 seconds over. Rick, I'm very sorry. Hey, I think a great kick-off panel. Please catch them afterwards because there's some really brilliant experiences that they can bring to bear. And if I could ask you to put your hands together, please. Thank you.